Love is lust, the path of the heart and the soul, ladies and gentlemen. You and I are not strangers to the force that stirs our very being, the force of lust. These two energies, they dance within us, often in a struggle, often in harmony, but always, always driving us towards deeper understanding. Let me tell you something about lust. It is not just desire, it is energy, it is raw. It is primal. It is the spark that lights the fire in humanity. Lust, my friends, is often misunderstood. It's painted with shame, with secrecy, with a sense of guilt. But let me tell you, lust is not your enemy. It is a messenger. It speaks to you from the depths of your soul, telling you of your deepest desires, your raw, untamed self. But do not mistake lust for the entirety of love. Lust is the shadow of love. The shadow is not to be feared. It is not to be shunned. It is to be understood. Carl Jung, a man who dug deep into the labyrinth of the human psyche, said that our shadow is not our enemy, it is our teacher. It is in embracing the rawness of our lust that we begin to see the hidden parts of ourselves, the parts we keep buried under masks of decorum, of control. And once we bring those parts into the light, once we understand them, we integrate them into our whole being. Now imagine love not just as an emotion, but as a spiritual force. Love in its highest form is a power that transcends the physical, that rises above the temporary, the fleeting. Love is the connection between souls, the union that doesn't just meet at the surface but journeys deep into the heart. Oh, and this, my friends, is where lust and love meet, where they blend, where they transform, for it is through understanding our lust that we reach the divine heights of love. When you allow yourself to confront your desires, to understand them, to accept them, you are not weakening yourself. You are growing, you are evolving. Lust is not your enemy. It is a catalyst for transformation. A fire that will forge you into the person you are destined to become. If you deny lust, if you repress it, you deny a part of yourself. You deny the fullness of your humanity. But love is your soul's song. It is the force that connects you to another, that transcends the physical. It is not merely attraction, it is connection. Love is the thread that binds us all together, a force that does not fade with time, but only grows deeper, richer, and more profound. In love, we become whole. We become who we were always meant to be. Remember this, the balance between love and lust is the balance between the heart and the soul. You cannot have one without the other. Lust without love is fleeting. Love without lust is empty. It is in the union of these two forces that you will find your greatest power, your deepest connection. It is through this balance that you will grow, not just as a lover, but as a human being. So, my friends, embrace the fullness of who you are. Embrace your desires, your passion, your lust. But do not stop there. Let love guide you to a higher place. Let it lift you up. Let it transform you. And as you do, you will see that love, when it is understood, when it is allowed to grow, will always be more than just lust. It will be the very soul of your being. So go forth, love. Transform, grow. The world is waiting for you to embrace it with your full heart, your full soul. And in that embrace, you will find all that you seek. Love and lust are two of the most powerful forces that move human beings. Deeply intertwined, yet distinctly different in their manifestations and intentions. Carl Jung, with his profound insights into the human psyche, did not separate them entirely, but rather saw them as parts of a greater whole, both arising from the same well of psychic energy or libido that drives human behavior. Lust in its rawest form is the primal urge, the instinctual desire that pulls two bodies together. It is physical, immediate, often consuming. It arises suddenly, without the need for reason or reflection. It is what makes the pulse quicken and the breath shallow. It is the force that lives in the senses, in the flesh, in the mind. Love, however, is more expansive, more intuitive. While lust craves possession, love seeks connection. Love transcends the physical and stretches into the emotional and spiritual dimensions. It is what binds two people over time, what nurtures and forgives and grows. Where lust is born of the body, love is born of the soul. But Jung recognized that these two forces are not opposites. They are complementary. They feed into each other. Lust can ignite love, and love can deepen lust. Together, they create a complete picture of human intimacy. The danger comes when society attempts to separate them too cleanly, labeling lust as base or shameful, and love as pure and noble. Jung warned against this kind of psychological splitting which leads to repression and internal conflict. He believed that acknowledging the role of lust in our emotional lives is essential to wholeness. When we deny lust, we deny a part of ourselves. We cast it into the shadow, that part of the unconscious mind that holds everything we refuse to face. And what is repressed in the shadow does not disappear. It returns in distorted, unhealthy ways. That is why Jung urged the integration of all aspects of the self, including the sensual and the instinctual. Understanding that love and lust are both expressions of the same deep desire, for unity, for connection, for the other, changes how we relate to them. It invites us to embrace both without shame and to discern when each is leading us. Lust may open the door to attraction, but love is what allows us to step inside and stay. Lust may be the flame, but love is the hearth that keeps the fire alive. When these forces work together, they become a source of immense vitality and creativity. They animate our relationships, our art, our sense of meaning. Jung's analytical psychology teaches that rather than resisting one in favor of the other, we must learn to recognize both within ourselves, to balance them, to let them inform one another. This is not weakness, it is maturity. It is the path to individuation, to becoming whole. And in that wholeness, we find a fuller, richer experience of what it means to be human. Lust in the Jungian sense is not merely a physical craving or biological imperative. It is a deeply symbolic energy that, when misunderstood or repressed, often reveals itself as a manifestation of the shadow, the unconscious, hidden aspect of the self that contains everything we reject, deny, or disown. For Jung, the shadow is not evil in itself, it is simply unintegrated. It holds the parts of us that society, family, or even our own conscious minds have labeled as unacceptable. Lust, with its primal urgency and raw instinct, frequently falls into this category, especially in cultures or belief systems that equate desire with sin or moral failure. When lust is banished to the shadow, it doesn't vanish. Instead, it gains power in secrecy. Repressed desire may begin to leak out in unexpected or destructive ways, through obsession, manipulation, addiction, or sudden eruptions of behavior seem out of character. These moments are not anomalies, but signs of a divided self, one that has not fully accepted its natural impulses. Jung insisted that to heal, to become whole, we must face the shadow, not with judgment, but with curiosity and compassion. To confront lust as a shadow aspect is to ask, what part of me have I feared to acknowledge? What longing is this trying to express? This is not to say that lust should be obeyed blindly. Rather, it must be understood. Within its energy is often a message about unmet needs, intimacy, passion, freedom, connection. It can point to parts of ourselves we have suppressed for the sake of fitting in or feeling. When we repress lust, we may also be repressing our capacity for emotional depth, creativity, and authenticity. For the same fire that burns with desire is also the fire that fuels artistic expression, spiritual yearning, and transformation. Bringing lust out of the shadow and into conscious awareness allows us to relate to it differently. We stop fearing it or being controlled by it. Instead, we begin to integrate it, to see it not as a threat, but as a part of our psychic life that deserves respect and attention. In this light, lust becomes not something to hide from, but something to learn from. It is not an enemy of morality, but a teacher of truth. It asks us to look at who we really are beneath the surface, what we want, what we lack, and what we are willing to reveal. In relationships, unacknowledged shadow lust can sabotage intimacy. When we do not own our desires, we project them onto others or unconsciously act them out. But when we do the inner work of shadow integration, we become more honest and more capable of loving deeply. We are no longer fragmented. We are no longer driven by forces we refuse to name. This process is not easy, but it is essential. As Jung taught, only by confronting the hidden parts of ourselves like lust as shadow can we move toward individuation and become whole. Because the hidden desires and impulses often point to aspects of ourselves we need to understand and integrate, the integration of lust in the self is a vital step in Jungian psychology and in the journey toward personal wholeness. Lust, often cast out of polite conversation and moral frameworks, is too frequently reduced to a carnal or animalistic instinct. But Jung did not see it that way. He recognized lust as a powerful psychological and archetypal energy. a component of the libido that is not inherently corrupt or shameful, but simply part of what makes us human. Like any psychic force, it becomes dangerous only when it is denied, ignored, or repressed. To integrate lust means to bring it into the light of consciousness, to recognize its presence within us without letting it dominate us. The psyche is not a moral battleground where impulses are to be conquered or silenced. It is a complex ecosystem in which all parts must find their place. Lust in this ecosystem is a dynamic and expressive force. It speaks to our yearning for connection, for intensity, for the merging of boundaries between self and other. When it is split off from the conscious self, it often takes on distorted forms: manipulation, compulsion, infidelity, secrecy. But when we allow ourselves to feel it, to acknowledge it without acting impulsively, we begin to understand what it represents. Often, it is not merely about sex or physical desire. It can be a symbol of longing for aliveness, creativity, or intimacy that transcends the body. This is why Jung emphasized the importance of dialogue with the unconscious. Through dream analysis, active imagination, or even honest introspection, we come face to face with the symbolic meanings behind our urges. A dream about seduction or passion, for instance, might not be about a literal relationship, but about our neglected inner fire, the desire to live more fully, to express ourselves without inhibition. When we pay attention to these messages, lust becomes less about possession and more about transformation. Integrating lust also means dismantling the binaries we've inherited: pure versus impure, sacred versus profane. Jung's approach does not divide the soul into acceptable and unacceptable parts. Rather, it encourages us to see all of our energies as potentially creative and enlightening. Lust, channeled through consciousness, becomes eros, the life-giving force that fuels love, art, play, and connection. When we integrate lust, we are not succumbing to chaos. We are learning to ride its waves with awareness and integrity. This is not about indulgence, but about acknowledgement. Integration is the process of seeing lust not as the enemy, but as a part of the self that can be honored and expressed responsibly. It's about claiming the full spectrum of who we are, rather than living a life of half-truths. In doing so, we move closer to authenticity and deeper relationships, because we're no longer afraid of our desires or ashamed of our passions. We begin to own them, speak them, and explore them consciously. By confronting our desires and understanding their deeper meanings, we can transcend the need to suppress them and learn to channel them constructively. The power of archetypes lies in their ability to bridge the personal and the collective, the conscious and the unconscious. Carl Jung introduced the concept of archetypes as universal symbols, patterns or images that reside within the collective unconscious, a realm of the psyche shared by all human beings. These archetypes are not learned, they are inherited potentials, shaping the way we perceive and interact with the world. They influence our behavior, our dreams, our relationships, and our sense of meaning. Among the most significant archetypes are the lover, the shadow, the hero, the mother, the wise old man, and the trickster. Each of these carries a specific psychological function and emotional charge, guiding the inner and outer journeys we undertake throughout life. In the context of love and lust, archetypes play a powerful role in how we form attractions and relationships. For example, when someone is drawn to another person not just for who they are, but for what they symbolize, perhaps an ideal of beauty, passion, danger, or salvation, they may be interacting more with an archetype than with the actual. The lover archetype, in particular, is deeply tied to both love and lust. It represents not just romantic passion, but also the human longing for unity, transcendence, and intense emotional connection. When activated, the lover archetype awakens a deep desire to merge with something beyond the self, whether that be another person, an artistic vision, or a spiritual ideal. Archetypes also help explain the emotional intensity that often accompanies our desire. Lust, when viewed through the lens of archetypal psychology, is not merely a physical urge, it is the symbolic language of the unconscious seeking it. It may be the lover reaching out for ecstasy, or the shadow revealing a hidden longing for freedom or rebellion. When we feel consumed by passion or irrational desire, it is often because an archetype has been activated in us, coloring our perceptions and emotions with deep mythic significance. Recognizing this can give us insight into why we are drawn to certain people or patterns. and how we might engage with these energies more consciously. Moreover, archetypes are not static. They evolve within the individual psyche. As we grow and change, so too do the ways in which we embody or relate to these patterns. The more we become aware of the archetypal forces at play within us, the more we can participate in our own psychological development rather than be unconsciously driven by it. Jung believed that working with archetypes could lead us toward individuation, the process of becoming who we truly are. When we explore and integrate these symbolic energies, we begin to access deeper layers of the self that were previously hidden. In this sense, love and lust are not just emotions or instincts. They are expressions of archetypal forces moving through us. They show us where our soul is reaching, what it is yearning for, and what we are being called to integrate. Both love and lust can take archetypal forms in our relationships, showing us patterns of attraction, passion, and connection. Lust, often dismissed as a purely physical urge, holds within it the potential for profound psychological and spiritual transformation. When viewed through the lens of Jungian psychology, lust is not merely an instinct to be suppressed or indulged. It is a vital force that, when examined and understood, can lead to greater self-awareness and personal growth. Jung did not separate the spiritual from the sensual. He saw the psyche as an integrated whole, where every emotion and desire had the potential to reveal deeper truths about the self. In this framework, lust becomes more than a biological impulse. It is a symbolic expression of the inner world, a language of the soul calling for attention. The presence of lust can awaken parts of ourselves that have long been dormant. It might stir up desires we didn't know we had, or expose aspects of our personality that have been repressed due to fear, shame, or social conditioning. These awakenings can be unsettling, but they are necessary. Jung taught that the path to individuation, the process of becoming a whole and integrated person, requires facing the unconscious. Lust is often one of the first signals that something powerful is stirring beneath the surface. It pushes against the boundaries of the ego, challenging the constructed identity we present to the world. When we allow ourselves to explore the origins of our desires, we begin to unearth what truly drives us. Lust can point to a need for connection, creativity, freedom, or recognition. Sometimes what appears on the surface as sexual attraction is actually a hunger for intimacy, for being seen, or for merging with another soul in a way that transcends the ordinary. By following these impulses back to their psychological roots, we begin to see that lust is not something to run from. It is a doorway. It is a call to examine the way we relate to our bodies, our emotions, and our capacity for vulnerability. Engaging consciously with lust requires courage. It demands that we be honest with ourselves about what we want and why. It invites us to question inherited beliefs, cultural taboos, and internalized judgments. This confrontation can be the spark for a journey inward, one that leads to a deeper understanding of our shadow, our complexes, and ultimately our potential. When we no longer fear or repress lust, we reclaim a piece of our psyche. We become more alive, more present, and more in tune with the totality of our being. In relationships, this transformation allows for greater authenticity and connection. No longer projecting unmet needs or unconscious patterns onto others, we begin to love from a place of wholeness rather than... We no longer use lust to fill voids or mask insecurities, but instead recognize it as a force that can energize love, inspire creativity, and ignite passion in every area of life. While lust may begin as a physical desire, its true power is in what it reveals and where it leads us. Lust, if channeled correctly, can be a catalyst for discovering hidden parts of the self, leading to greater self-awareness and personal growth. Love, in its deepest and most transformative form, is not merely an emotional experience between two individuals, it is a pathway to spiritual growth. Carl Jung understood love not only as a bond, but as an archetypal force that propels the human soul toward wholeness. Unlike lust, which is often immediate and physical, Love has the capacity to evolve, to stretch across time and challenge the self to grow in previously unimaginable ways. It is through love that we confront our greatest vulnerabilities, face our deepest fears, and experience the opening of the heart that allows for transcendence. This kind of love is not about possession or idealization. It is about presence, reflection, and deep acceptance of both ourselves and the other. To love another truly means to see them not as an object of desire, but as a mirror of the soul. The people we are drawn to most powerfully often reflect something of our inner world, sometimes illuminating the parts of ourselves we have not yet learned to embrace. Jung called this projection, where unconscious contents of the psyche are placed onto another person. In the early stages of love, this projection can feel like magic or fate. But over time, it reveals itself as a call to reclaim those lost parts of ourselves. It is through the trials of love, the conflicts, the misunderstandings, the periods of separation and reunion, that the soul undergoes its deepest refinement. In this sense, love is a crucible. It heats us, melts us, reforms us. It asks us to confront our ego, to release control, and to surrender to something greater. We begin to shed the masks we've worn to be accepted, the defenses we built to protect our wounds, and the illusions we've carried about what love should look like. What emerges is a more authentic self, capable of giving and receiving love, not from neediness or fear, but from openness and trust. Love, when lived consciously, becomes a spiritual discipline, requiring patience, humility, forgiveness, and the willingness to grow. Moreover, love is the practice of unity. It teaches us to hold difference without division, to witness another person's reality without erasing our own. It stretches the heart's capacity for empathy and deepens the soul's understanding of interconnection. In the presence of real love, we experience a sense of sacredness, not because the other person completes us, but because they accompany us on the journey to becoming ourselves. They are not the destination, but a companion on the road. This mutual becoming is what makes love such a powerful force for inner transformation. When we experience love in this way, it no longer feels like something that just happens to us. It becomes a choice, a devotion, a conscious act of growth. It becomes a dialogue between two souls, each seeking truth, depth, and meaning. As Jung suggested, it is in this kind of soulful relationship that we encounter the self, that deep inner core of the psyche that connects us to the divine. In this way, love ceases to be just a feeling and becomes a sacred path, where true love transcends ego and touches something eternal, reflecting not only who we are, but who we are meant to be. The balance between love and lust is one of the most challenging and enriching pursuits in the human experience. Carl Jung, with his profound understanding of the psyche, viewed both forces as essential components of the libido, the psychic energy that animates all of human life. Love and lust are not enemies. They are energies that, when understood and integrated, can lead to deeper intimacy, psychological wholeness, and spiritual maturity. But to achieve that balance requires awareness, discernment, and awareness. Lust without love can be shallow and fleeting, while love devoid of desire can become distant and cold. It is in their union that we find a complete expression of connection, one that engages both body and soul. Lust is rooted in instinct. It is the biological drive to seek pleasure, reproduction, and union at the most physical level. It is powerful and often impulsive, capable of overriding logic and caution. Left unchecked or unacknowledged, it can become addictive, manipulative, or disconnected from authentic emotional connection. But to deny it entirely is to repress an essential part of ourselves. Jung taught that what is repressed does not disappear. It goes underground into the shadow, where it gathers power and eventually re-emerges in destructive or unconscious ways. Love, on the other hand, is more than an emotion. It is a state of being. It requires commitment, vulnerability, and a willingness to see and be seen without illusion. Love asks for patience, for understanding, and for the capacity to nurture another while also holding our own. Love holds space for growth, for the unfolding of two individuals within a shared container. It is not about losing oneself in another, but about meeting them as an equal, as a reflection and partner on the journey. To find balance, we must allow lust to awaken our senses, but let love direct our intentions. Lust may open the door to attraction, but But it is love that invites us to stay, to explore, to deep. This balance becomes particularly important in long-term relationships, where the initial intensity of desire may fade unless nurtured through emotional connection and conscious effort. When love and lust are separated, the relationship may feel fragmented, either too emotionally safe but passionless, or too physically charged but emotionally empty. Achieving harmony between these two forces involves recognizing the sacredness of both. Lust can be the spark that reignites intimacy and brings vitality into the mundane. Love can provide the safety and trust that allows desire to be expressed without fear or shame. Jung believed that integration is the key, bringing opposites together to create something whole. When love and lust are held in balance, they do not compete, they complement. They teach us to live fully in both our flesh and our spirit. In this space of balance, we discover that neither love nor lust needs to be sacrificed for the other. Instead, they enrich one another, creating a dynamic relationship that is grounded, alive, and evolving. They remind us that true connection does not require choosing between passion and depth, but embracing both. Because only in the harmony of these forces can we experience intimacy that is both soulful and sensual.